Hey, welcome back to the channel. In this video, we're talking about the brand new Fitbit Charge 5, which is a total redesign of last year's Fitbit Charge 4 with new features, new aesthetics, a lot of stuff we're going to talk about. And to be honest, this is everything we wanted the Fitbit Charge 4 to be. And to be clear, I already love the Fitbit Charge 4. If you go back to my top smartwatches 2020 video, you'll see I gave it an award as my favorite fitness tracker. But the interesting thing here, although this is a major upgrade, it still falls in a very interesting category within the smartwatch spectrum, where it's not a full-blown smartwatch, but it's also not a cheap fitness tracker. So for a lot of people, this is the perfect device, but many people don't even know that this exists. And so I've been calling this a premium fitness tracker where it does pretty much everything smartwatches do, for health tracking at least, but it costs something much closer to what we're seeing with fitness bands. On top of that, it's more subtle and light and slim like the fitness trackers, but again, it does a lot that we're seeing with these smartwatches. So in this video, I'm going to dive into everything you need to know about this device and of course put it to the test to see how accurate it is with GPS and heart rate and sleep tracking and anything else you might want to know. But of course, I'm getting ahead of myself. You guys can already tell I'm excited about the Fitbit Charge 5. Let's start off just talking about some of the main redesign that we're actually seeing here. And the first and most obvious one is that we now have a color display. So in the past, the Fitbit Charge 4, I always said really should have had a color display, especially when you're looking at the price and the year it was made. Like, color displays are very accessible. So now we finally have one with color. And the reason that I really like color, some people might say, well, black and white's more subtle, I like that. Color, I think, is better because when you're running or you're doing something, at a quick glance, it's easier to decipher which numbers are related to what. Your heart rate, your speed, things like that. Having color can really differentiate the numbers on a tiny display like this and make it easier to read. So it makes the display feel bigger because you spend less time trying to figure out and decipher what's actually on there. Additionally, this is also twice as bright as the Fitbit Charge 4, so it's way easier to see in broad daylight, and it has an ambient light sensor, so in darker environments, it'll dim down. Bright lights, it'll brighten back up. And similar to what we saw on the Fitbit Luxe, this no longer has a force sensor or a button on the side. Instead, if you want to wake up the watch, you can either lift it and it has tilt to wake, or you can double tap the display. I'll talk more about how you navigate without the button in a second, but the reason that they did that, I think this is really interesting because you're seeing some features that normally are reserved for the most flagship smartwatches out there. And what we have on here is EDA scanning, which kind of measures your stress and things like that. And we also have an ECG coming to this. So that's the main reason they got rid of the force sensor and the button on the side. You can have a little metal rail there that's going to help you measure your ECG, for example. A little asterisk next to ECG because at the moment of release, it's not quite ready. So I always recommend don't buy a product for something that's coming, but just know that if you buy it, eventually we do expect that it will come. Who knows when it's going to come because it's probably in the hands of regulators right now, depending on which country you're in. It has to be approved by like the FDA in the US, for example, before that'll come to this device. But when it does, that's going to be really exciting. Flipping over to the back, you'll see that we have, of course, the 4 nodes for charging. The charger is very easy to use. It snaps on magnetically, which is great. And we have our whole array of health sensors. And just going over some of what these health sensors can do, you can do HRV, so heart rate variability. You can measure your heart rate, 24/7 heart rate tracking with high and low heart rate alerts. We have ECG, EDA, we've got breathing, so how many breaths per minute you have. We can measure blood oxygen, skin temperature, and that's an interesting one right there because you can use that for, right now, it's really mostly used for sleep tracking, but you could also use it in the future, presumably, with something new that's coming to this device. And I'll talk more about the new feature in just a second, but we also have GPS on here and step tracking, of course, so really a full array of health tracking capabilities that make this pretty much on par with just about any fitness or any real smartwatch out there. And being that this is selling for just $180, which is less than half the price of the Apple Watch, that's a really appealing array of sensors. Now, back to what I was saying with the skin temperature. I suspect that the skin temperature is going to be used for a new feature they're going to roll out, which again is not out yet, so take this with a grain of salt, but it's going to be called the Daily Readiness Score, which I believe to be a score that's going to be pretty similar to Garmin's Body Battery, which is basically going to track your sleep and your fitness and kind of combine everything into a general number that estimates how well you're feeling, how much energy you have. And I know the first reaction for a lot of people is, well, I could just tell how I'm feeling. But I found that personally having an index like Garmin's Body Battery can be very useful because it could indicate when you're coming down with a cold. It could tell you if it's lower in the morning than you expect. You maybe would know that you're not sleeping as well, or if things are changing in your life, then maybe you're too stressed, maybe you're not working out enough. I think it's a good indicator to kind of keep tabs on how your health is, which isn't single, easy to digest number. So hopefully the daily readiness score on the Fitbit works as well as the one on Garmin. But of course, we can only tell when that comes out. Right now, unfortunately, it's not quite available on this device yet. And throughout this video, I've been obviously really focusing on the health tracking of this, so let's actually get into the accuracy testing that I did after going on several runs, walks, bike rides, and really testing out the GPS and heart rate of the Fitbit Charge 5. So taking a look at the GPS accuracy, it did a pretty decent job. You can see there's a little bit of wobbling around the trail, but in general, it followed the trail really well, and after a 4-mile run, it was off by less than 1/10 of a mile. Similarly, the heart rate was reasonably accurate as well. I compared it to the Polar H10, which is a known accurate heart rate strap, and as you can see here, it overcompensated a little bit in the beginning, but after that, for the rest of this 4-mile run, it tracked really well, with all of the dips and valleys, for the most part being right where they needed to be. Of course, there were a few erroneous spikes here and there, but overall, I would say this is more than accurate enough to be a general indication of how your workouts are going to impact your fitness and your health. Now, as a side note, I have some really exciting smartwatches sitting on that desk right over there. I mean, maybe you could guess them in the comments, but if you want to see those videos when they come out, be sure to go down and click that subscribe button and the bell icon. So not to make a stupid pun here, but while fitness is the obvious focus of the Fitbit Charge 5, it's not the only thing this device can do. This is also a rival to smartwatches in that it also works in many other ways. You can have stopwatches and timers on here, you get notifications on here, and you can really track a lot in your daily life. While the main focus is certainly fitness, the notification interaction is also pretty nice. This integrates well with both iPhones and Androids. However, if you have an Android, you do have that little added benefit of being able to interact a little more with your notifications. But the notifications come from WhatsApp and texting and all types of different apps. And while there is no speaker or beeper to give you notifications, it does have a vibrating mode on here, which can be used for plenty of other things as well. For example, the smart alarm in the morning. So if you set your alarm for, say, 7 o'clock in the morning, it doesn't matter when you fall asleep, this is tracking your sleep, and it'll know within a half hour before you wake up when the best time to wake you up is. And it's going to do this based on your sleep cycle. So the idea behind this is that you wake up feeling refreshed and just from a gentle vibration as opposed to an aggressive beeping at the wrong part of your sleep cycle. Personally, I'm a big fan of this. I love when watches have that. And on such a little device like this that is easy to sleep with, it doesn't have giant bezels digging into your arm, I think this is a great device to wear when you're sleeping. And tying in with some of the other smartwatchy capabilities this has, one of them, and really a huge one, is the ability to have Fitbit Pay on here. So you have NFC payments, meaning that if you are going for a run, your phone and your wallet are both in your car, and you come across a coffee shop, and maybe you want to buy a water, a Gatorade, whatever it might be, you can pay with this device, or just on a day-to-day basis, not taking your phone and your wallet out of your pocket. It's pretty convenient to have Fitbit Pay on here. You also have quiet modes. So if you get a lot of notifications, Do Not Disturb is great, but you also have a sleep mode, so you don't have notifications waking you up all night, and something I really like is called exercise mode. And while this has plenty of smartwatch features, unfortunately I found there were some things that really felt like they were missing. So for example, there were no music controls, no calendar, no weather, no camera controls, and other things along those lines. I understand Fitbit was trying to focus on the fitness, but it would be nice to have those features on here. The battery life on this, however, is pretty fantastic. This is also a relatively durable device as well, so with 50-meter water resistance, you can take it swimming or showering, or if you're washing your hands, you shouldn't have to worry about this. And I'm not sure if you're supposed to bring this into salt water, but I went surfing with it this past weekend, and it had no problems at all. And on top of that, the display has Gorilla Glass 3, which is more durable than a lot of other devices out there. And while tracking your health is really important, equally as important is analyzing that, which is where the Fitbit app comes in. And this has a lot of capabilities. Of course, like I said, with sleep tracking, but I do have one big gripe with this, one big thing I'm going to complain about, and I'll get to that rant in just a minute. But talking about some of the things that it does well, first of all, it does integrate with things like Strava and Peloton and plenty of other third parties out there, making it not just isolated to the Fitbit app. Okay, so getting into the one big thing I don't like, the really big thing I don't like about the Fitbit app, this is that they're really pushing Fitbit Premium hard. If you have Fitbit Premium, it's great. You have full access to your watch. But what I don't like is that they hold features hostage. So if you buy this device, $180, great device, right? but there are features within the app that you're not able to use unless you get premium. And I don't mean like online coaching and things like that. I mean like you literally can't see older data. You don't see certain parts of your sleep tracking. Things that the watch already does, they just hold them back until you pay for premium. So while I highly recommend getting premium to use the full potential of this device, I wish that Fitbit would allow you to see more information that comes from this watch without charging you to see it. And that's something I've always kind of disliked about how Fitbit operates, but all things considered, it is a really nice app, and if you do have premium, it is a really functional device. Now you might be wondering, with a small device that's bigger than a fitness band but smaller than a smartwatch, like what does the interface really look like? Well, let's get into that. So starting off on the watch face, you can customize this in the app, but if you swipe through to the right, you go through a bunch of different widgets, including notifications, your exercises, and there are 20 different exercises to choose from. You have a couple saved on the device itself, and of course you can customize the settings for each one. If you double tap, it always goes back to the home screen, and you can swipe through our widgets again. After that, we have an alarm clock, and of course you can customize this to have a smart wake if you want. You've got timers, which you can set up to like 60 minutes. And we have EDA scan on here as well right now, which, like I said, is going to essentially kind of measure your stress. It's a little 3-minute thing that, monitors how stressed you might be right now. And if we go back, that'll bring us to the home screen. If we swipe up from the bottom, it brings us into a quick little hour-day summary telling us some of the basics about our health, including our heart rate and our sleep from last night, our SpO2, so blood oxygen levels, and of course, if we are anywhere near our goal of 5 exercises in a week. So some pretty good stuff right there. Of course, like I said, you can customize the home watch face there, but if you swipe down from the top, you have some other quick settings, including a water mode, sleep mode, and of course you can go to some more advanced settings and choose, like for example, if you want the GPS to be tracked from your phone, from a hybrid, or only from the device. It naturally defaults to use your phone more, just so that you make sure you're not killing the battery as much. Now, looking at the app, it tells you a lot right off the bat about your day, and if you scroll down, you can see that there's a lot of other short summaries. Right now I do have Fitbit Premium, so it shows me a little bit more about my sleep, and I can dive into exactly when I had deep sleep or REM sleep. It'll tell you percentages throughout the night, what's good, what's not good, and of course it'll tell you a little bit more about your sleep stages. Similarly, we can see our time of sleep, our restlessness throughout the night, and if we go down, you can see really similar numbers for how many steps you took every day, and you can actually add other friends on here to see how many steps they took and kind of make it like a friendly game. You can actually go into your Charge 5 and customize the device by looking at different apps. Unfortunately, there's not a huge selection of apps right now. Eventually, I suspect this will improve. Unfortunately, we don't have music controls on here. I would like to see that, but maybe that's something we will eventually add. We also have watch faces, and there are quite a few really nice looking ones that really capitalize on that color display to show you a lot of information in a pretty aesthetic way. You can of course add your wallet here or change clock faces, and if you scroll down, the last thing I want to point out is that you can change some of the main settings like your heart rate alerts and which wrist it's actually on. So overall, I think it's pretty obvious. I'm a big fan of the Fitbit Charge 5. I really like this device, and I think that while there are a lot of cheaper devices out there, like the Mi Band 6 that does a fantastic job of tracking your fitness, I think that Fitbit did a good job of really differentiating this, from giving you skin temperature and ECG and GPS on here and NFC payments. All of those make this, in my opinion, a very different category of devices from both the cheap fitness bands and from full-blown smartwatches. Well, really what differentiates from smartwatches is the lack of being able to get apps on this, but more so it's getting the lower price tag. So I think this is really interesting for how this fits into the Fitbit lineup. Not much cheaper than this, really similar price, is the Fitbit Luxe, which I really wouldn't recommend to most people. I would say anybody considering that should really be considering this, as like I said, you're getting GPS and NFC payments and things like that added to this device. And above this, if you want to spend a little extra money, you can get the Versa 3 or the Fitbit Sense. And both of those are really solid devices, but if your main focus is tracking health, then I would say that this is almost a better purchase. It's smaller and lighter and more affordable, and it still does a lot of what those do. Now, sure, it's not the most accurate out there, but if you're just trying to lose weight or get into slightly better health, this is a fantastic device. I wouldn't kid myself in saying that this is for marathon runners or anybody training for intense things, but for just about everybody else, I like the Fitbit Charge 5. So, I don't know. What do you think? Would you be buying the Fitbit Charge 5? Do you think this is going to catch on? Leave a comment. I want to hear from you guys. As always, if you enjoyed this video, consider liking and subscribing. I'm Mike O'Brien. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.